Vivek was asked to share his faith about God and its relevance to his run for office.
Proclaim that one of your tenets is God is real. And as a Christian, my faith is first and foremost who I am. Being a Hindu, can you please share your faith about God and what you think of his son, Jesus Christ?
Thank you. So I appreciate that. So I'll share with you my faith, and I'll share with you the relevance that I think it has to leading this country. So I'm a Hindu. There's many strains like there are Christianity, Catholicism, etc. There's many strains of Hinduism too. I believe in one true God. I believe that God resides in each of us. I think it is the same statement of spirit when we say in the Christian tradition, and I did go to Catholic schools and I've read the Bible perhaps more closely than most Christians I know. It's the same message as when we say we are equal because we are made in the image of God. It's the same spirit to say that's where our equality comes from. It's not some secular value. We're equal in the eyes of each other because we're equal in the eyes of God. The tradition I was raised in, we say we're equal in the eyes of each other because God resides in each of us. That we each have a duty to one another. You got to think about that strand of sacrifice and duty. That's foundational to Hinduism. I think it's the common strand between the Old Testament and the New. I mean, God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac for God. He didn't make him follow through with it. The New Testament, God comes back and says, I will sacrifice my son, Jesus Christ, for you, the people. And so that's a long way of saying that I'm not Christian. And just in my spirit of my answer to the last question, I will never pretend to be something I'm not. I'm always going to speak the truth about who I am and what I stand for. But I think it's deeply true that we share the same Judeo-Christian values that this nation was founded on. And this nation was absolutely founded on Judeo-Christian values. That's a fact. It is also a fact that I deeply share those values in common. And to be honest, does our family, when there isn't a Hindu temple available, will we go for our collection of self to a church if that's the next closest available opportunity for prayer? Yes, we will. And so in our tradition, we say Jesus Christ is a son of God. I understand that's different than saying he's the son of God, but we share the same value set in common. And I'm not running to be pastor-in-chief. I'm running to be commander-in-chief. It's a different role, right? And for that role, I think we share the same value set. Thank you. Yeah.
Vivek was asked to share his faith about God and its relevance to his run for office. And what I loved was Vivek comes out the gate and says, I am a Hindu. That man sat and authentically declared exactly who he is and what he believes. He didn't stutter. He didn't capitulate. He didn't hem-haw. Well, I believe. No, he told you up front, I'm Hindu. And he didn't stand there attempting to, change his voice to mimic an old Baptist preacher or to show up with some hot sauce in his suit jacket, let the church say amen. He ain't doing any of that. He said, I am a Hindu. I don't have to agree with that or like it, but I respect that. And when Vivek talks about the image of God and our equality in relationship to each other, right there is where he demonstrated that he has a fundamental understanding of mankind being created in the imago Dei, the image of God. He is borrowing from the Christian worldview to do that, but I don't have a problem with that. I think that is great. He also said that he will never pretend to be something that he is not. Respect for that. When have we ever seen that in politics? I'm not saying we haven't, but it's just a question, right? So as it pertains to his values, Vivek mentions that his values align with the Judeo-Christian ethic. And that if we're going to be honest, many of those values, they permeate multiple faith traditions. He is clear and he is telling the truth that many of the values that we share as Americans, they overlap with the values that many of us hold as Christians. Now, those values, they are not arbitrary, and they didn't just come out of thin air. Like, we just didn't wake up and somebody established these values. They came from somewhere. They came from the sovereign God of the universe that all mankind knows, according to Romans 1, exists. Right? The Bible tells us that what can be known about God has been made plain to them, for God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal nature and divine power, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so that we are without excuse. He is clear when communicating that he is not saying the same thing as we say, the Christian, when we say that Jesus is the Son of God. He's not saying the same thing when we say Jesus is the Son of God, that means something, and he knows what we mean when we say that. We're saying, no, Jesus is God incarnate. He would not say that, and he just told you that. As a Christian, I respect the fact that he's not misrepresenting my worldview, and he is acknowledging that when I say Jesus is a Son of God, it is not the same thing as Jesus is the Son of God. Those articles, the and he made that distinction. I have no other choice but to respect that. So don't play games with me and try to pander to me like we're the same, because we're not. When we say that Jesus is the Son of God, it is different than saying that Jesus is a Son of God. That is something that as a Christian, I can respect. He also doesn't purport to believe that Jesus is God, right? But he knows that we believe that Jesus shares in the same divine nature as God the Father, and he was able to make an intellectual assent and articulate that. I have to respect that. I also love and respect how he said, I am not running to be the pastor-in-chief. He is running to be the commander-in-chief. Those are two completely different roles. I am of the opinion that if a man has been called to the pastorate, you don't need to be hemming and hawing, and 1 week you in the pulpit and the next week you with the House of Rep under the gold dome. No. You can't shepherd people and do that. Be a pastor. You a pastor, go be a pastor. You want to be a politician, go be a politician. This is why I've always had issues with Jesse Jackson and with Ultra Perm, what's his name? Al Sharpton, and even Raphael Warnock. I'm just like, no. It's always, notice with the three of them, there is more compromise with the three of them than from this man, a Hindu who is telling you who he is and making it clear, I ain't trying to be the pastor-in-chief, I'm trying to be the commander-in-chief. This is just a fact. And because Vivek can clearly articulate his principles and the policy platform that guides and informs his campaign, I believe that Christians need to strongly examine Vivek as a viable candidate based on his values and his policies. Because the values he's articulated and his policies are good for this country.